My screen froze. Excuse me. What's up, hoop heads? Your boy JB here with Undrafted Hoops, coming at you with another episode of our off-season block party. Tonight, we're diving into the Portland Trailblazers, baby. That's right. I'm super excited for this one. But before I do that, I got to make my intros. I want to give a huge shout out to Hardcore Sports Network on YouTube, and recently just got added to the Let's Talk Sports platform on YouTube, and I'm real excited for this one. I haven't really had a chance to dive into their bevy of shows yet, but I'm looking forward to it. But I want to thank them right out of the gate. Also, you can find us on Facebook, Undrafted Hoops, Twitter, Undrafted Hoops _. Both of them are news driven, and YouTube. That's our podcast channel. Smash the subscribe button. Please do that. Please do that. What's up, my man? Kyle in the building. But before we get started, I got to bring on the man, the myth, the Sasquatch, the man of very few words sometimes, my man, Tony G in the building.
What is up? This is gonna be a good one, so I'm ready.
So you're ready for this one. The other ones you weren't entirely
ready for this one. I was ready for those two, but I'm locked in.
This is a fun one because the Portland Trailblazers, the biggest story with them every offseason is Dame Lillard. Is he going to stay there? It's kind of an afterthought anymore. Guys move on from franchises, but Lillard has said in the past, I want to be a Trailblazer for life. I want to be like Kobe and Duncan and players along them lines. Dirk Nowitzki, who has just stayed and won a title with their drafted franchise. And every year, we always float the possibility of a Damian Lillard trade, right? But this one feels a little different. Portland got very lucky in the draft. But before we get into that, that's the lead up. I want to touch on, before we even get into the offseason, that's the lead up to what I'm getting at. They land the number 3 pick, even though they weren't the third worst team in the league. They finished at 33-46, Tony, right? Based off of what you've seen from them last season, are they in the position to retool around Lillard, or do you see them way further apart where they're going to finally explore that option?
So I think they seem kind of far apart. I mean, because Jeremy Grant's a free agent, so that's someone they would need to bring back. Nurkic is making $18 million a year. He took a step back last year. I know he's been going through injuries and stuff, but he didn't really finish around the rim. I just see like this would be the time for them to get everything. Like they didn't get a championship from Lillard, but they got a lot of good seasons. And now it's time you got to look at your future. I think that's the direction I'm going.
So with that being said, okay, we know Lillard's obviously 32 points a game scorer with that team. He's hands down the best player on the team. Jeremy Grant's a question mark in free agency. You think they should move on. What pieces are you going to lock in on and say, based on what we've seen last season, these are the 2 or 3 guys that we're going to keep and we're going to retool around? Because as of right now, Cam Reddish and Thibault are free agents. They have player options, or no, they have team options, right? No. They're actually both free agents. I'm sorry. Both of them guys are free agents. And Portland's kind of in a spot where, like, yes, if they move Lillard, there's got to be a few pieces they're going to keep the retool around. What guys do you see I want to say like making the cut on a rebuild if Portland goes in that direction.
I think they bring back Thibault, and Sharp is going to be their main piece. And then other than that, anyone is kind of untouchable. Available.
Yes.
Everyone else.
So do you see it? Do you see an option where? What's up, Tone?
I said no. That's just how I see it right now.
You know, I'm looking at their payroll, and they're on that cusp of having money to spend, but they don't because of how big Lillard's contract is. Because outside of Lillard, Simons, and Nurkic, nobody makes over $6 million, right? So they're that one guy away from being able to make a move. You know, if they just sign Jeremy Grant, they have no money to improve. Even if they trade 3 in Nurkic, I don't know what they're going to bring back that would necessarily make them a top 4 team in the West. Jeremy Grant should come back. He's basically a stretch 4. I agree with that, Clarence, but even if they did get a very nice package for 3, I just still don't see it being enough in the West. Golden State's going to retool and be back, and Denver's going to be back. To think Memphis isn't going to be a top 4 team is ludicrous. As long as John Moran isn't suspended for 70% of the season, I think they're going to be right in the mix. So even if they stuck at 3 and drafted a guy, this is a very important question, Tony. If they trade Lillard, do you expect it pre-draft or post-draft?
I was gonna say during the draft, even though that spot usually doesn't happen with superstars because you gotta build up the maximum package. Actually, no. I think it's going to be pick dependent. I think if Scoot falls, then they roll with Scoot, and then they may therefore try to build around him instead of just running out 2-point guard lineup. So I actually think it's going to be the offseason, and depending on how the draft goes.
I think that I do agree with you. I don't think you're going to wait till draft day to know who Charlotte's taking. I think by the time they get up to that point, I think they're going to have an idea. And do you see a scenario where if Portland's clear cut on a rebuild, do you see a scenario where is there a better deal for Charlotte out there? What if they like Brandon Miller anyway? Isn't it just beneficial to just move back from 2 to 3 and Portland gives up maybe that? I know Portland has the 23rd pick this year. Is it worth going back one slot? Kind of like the Jason Tatum thing with the Sixers, where the Sixers moved from 3 to 1 because they knew Tatum was going to fall. So if Charlotte's in love with Brandon Miller, say they like him, and they're just going to say, well, we're not going to take him 2 because we know Portland wants Scoot. So why don't we just say to Portland, give us 3, we'll take 23 as a compensation pick, and then you could take Scoot out of the gate. Because then ultimately they'll be able to pay. I'm assuming there's a pay difference between 2 and 3, or no?
Yeah, there's a little bit of salary difference, not too much. But of course, if I'm the Hornets, I'm definitely looking to. If I say Brandon Miller's the guy I want, I'm definitely listening to offers. I know people will want to jump up and potentially pick Scoot. Especially if you can just get a free first-round pick from the Blazers and do a simple swap like that. That's ideal.
Yeah, it is like you said, it is pick dependent on who's there. But I actually, the more and more I look at this roster, and they still own the rights to most of their first rounders. 2024, they don't have it. Most likely, it's going to convert. I forget who gets it. I want to say it's Chicago. Yeah, Chicago has the rights to one of their picks, and they're saying it's most likely going to be 2024 next year. So, kind of where I'm at with Lillard and where Portland kind of is, I I think before the draft, you're going to get a scenario where Damian Lillard is offered maybe a 4 first rounders and a young player, and I think Portland just takes it. Maybe there's going to be pick swaps. You know how crazy these trades are anymore, but I just think they're kind of locked in. They're locked into Nurkic for a couple years. My man Kyle chimed in and said Nurkic played like he was afraid to get hurt again. He's 28 years old. Let me see. I'm pulling up his thing. He had 13 points a game, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, just under a steal and a block per game. He's played 37, 56, and 52 games over the last 3 seasons. I kind of feel like, by the way, Denver made the right decision picking Jokic over Nurkic. They did have both on their roster at the same time. But I feel like his body is letting him down. And I think that is going to play a huge part in this rebuild. Like I said, they got extremely lucky getting the 3rd pick. And kind of where the salaries are, I just feel that they're at a dead end with Lillard. Because really the only thing they can do is sign Jeremy Grant and trade and get another guy. But that's not enough. And, as much as I look at this team, Nurkic is actually owed for 3 more seasons at $18 million a year. That's just, you're in jail. Same with Simons, 24, 25, 27 million. I think pre-draft, Portland gets hit with a deal that they just take. I'm kind of like all in on. Like, okay, if the Sixers call Portland and say, we'll offer you Tyrese Maxey and our first-round draft pick for Damian Lillard, Portland has to strongly consider that, correct? No, I know Lillard has 6 years left. I was talking about, somebody said Lillard has 5 or 6 years left. I'm talking about Simons and Nurkic. They're actually owed 3 more years each. So, but Tony, like I just said about Damian Lillard, if a team just calls him, Portland has to literally just based on assets, what they have and how they are salary related, you just take up as much as you can. Maybe even try and get a sign and trade for Jeremy Grant, just to be able to get something for him.
Yeah, I mean, the Lillard can bring. It really depends how much what you want. Like Maxey, obviously, is probably going to be one of the. He's still young, so like you're essentially he would make sense. Sixers don't have a first rounder. I think they could trade the 2029 first round and Maxey. I don't know if that's the best deal that we.
No, definitely not.
That the Sixers could. I feel like there's better offers out there. If they did trade, like the only thing I could see is like that maybe makes sense, and I still don't think it's good enough. Is like Nurkic and Simons and 3 to the Wizards for Beal and 8.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know.
That's if the Wizards want to go into a 3-year rebuild too. I mean, that's just. But I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I don't even see where that makes Portland any. I mean, they'll be better, but not significantly better. I mean, You take away Simons and that Beal, who's very good, but now you lose Nurkic. You said Nurkic, correct? Because of the money?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't see, like, then who do you replace him with? Not, and we already shown Nurkic isn't a world beater, but I mean, you still need a serviceable center. If your move is to keep Lillard happy and try to compete for a title, that's still not enough. And I love Jeremy Grant, and I think he's an underrated player. But Jeremy Grant, it's funny, he was traded from Denver, and they replaced Denver. I mean, they replaced Jeremy Grant with Aaron Gordon. Jeremy Grant needs to become that Aaron Gordon, Andre Iguodala type role player, and he will succeed on any roster that he's on, in my opinion. Jeremy's a great player. We watched him in Philadelphia when he was a kid and how he's gotten to this point. But I don't know if he's a difference maker on a championship team as a locked-in number 3 option. I think he might have to be that unexpected role player that scores 18 points for you, like Aaron Gordon did in Game 4 of the championship. I don't know. Do you kind of get that feeling about Jeremy Grant? And, do you really think that he's a difference maker for Portland if they decide to rebuild around the number 3, like keep Lillard and retool the roster?
Like I do and I don't. I do think if he's your third, fourth guy, he can definitely win a championship. But with, Lillard and Beal and kind of no depth, like that's not going to be enough. But I do agree if he was on like a very good roster and Grant is your fourth and fifth guy, like that team's probably gonna be competing for a championship if that's your.
Yeah, especially if you're saying you think you could see him keeping Thibault, and obviously if they have Sharp, if they get a little bit better, progressively better. But Josh is saying $18 million. People are saying $18 million is too much for Nurkic. But if he plays at his old self, if you're not available to play, I don't know how valuable you are at $18 million. He looks significantly slower. He doesn't stretch the floor. And I don't know if you can win a championship in this league without a 5 that could at least attempt a 3-pointer confidently. I know Nurkic. I know you talked about him stretching it a little bit more, but not at the rate. I think, if you're building guard heavy, like if you're building Lillard, Beal, you can't have slow ass Nurkic clouding up the paint, bro. Not in this league. It's all about spacing.
No, that's why I said he would be gone. There's no way you could keep those 3 defensively.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was overlooking that. I got locked into Nurkic. Like what I'm seeing out of a guy like Nurkic. A guy like Nurkic, like a good spot in my opinion for him would be like. This might sound weird, but like a team like the Lakers, where AD can play the 4 because he's a better 4, or like a team like Miami. But like then again, like AD and Bam don't really stretch the floor anymore, so that wouldn't work necessarily. He needs to be on a team where 4 guys can really truly stretch the floor. I don't know. I just the more and more I think about this Portland team, I'm all in. I'm all in on Lillard's going to play for a different team, and I will be truly fucking stunned if he's on this roster post draft. But here's another thing, Tony, and you had mentioned this about Lillard. They like to build up maximum value for these franchise max players. Maybe Portland just takes the guy that they want at 3 and then say, we still have the 23rd pick. So we'll just take 2 guys we like, and then we'll trade Lillard for 4 future first. And then we'll rebuild around all these young guys. So I do kind of agree with you with what you said, that you might see this evolve a post-draft because of the the idea of getting max value for Lillard. Being that they have the 23rd pick, is there anybody maybe a little bit later in this draft that you would like to maybe see them get? A stretch four or maybe a backup big man in case Nurkic isn't what they expect, or if they do move out of 3 and say we got to get a guy at 23 now that's going to be able to contribute minutes. So do you think maybe a big man is where they're going to go with that, maybe that later pick?
I think they'll just pick the best available player, because that's kind of what stage they're at. There's no like anything locked into their core. So whoever they have on their board. Another thing I was thinking you could do, it's possible, is you could do, I don't know if Dallas would want to do this, but you could do Simons and 10 for either Bertans in 23 or Tim Hardaway in 23.
Both. That's terrible.
Yeah, but I mean, essentially, you're just trading for the 10th pick.
Just so Denver can. You're saying so Dallas can unload.
So, Dallas actually gets someone who's like serviceable, a shooter next to Luka, and they just dump a contract. So you get the 10th pick.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay. So going back to the 3rd pick, Tone, is there a guy based off of, say, Scoot gets picked 2nd? That's something that nobody's really even saying. If they just go Victor, Scoot 2nd, is there a guy does Portland go and take Brandon Miller, or do you see them maybe picking a guy, maybe a different fit at 3, or do you just see if Scoot ain't there, they're trading out?
If Scoot isn't there, I mean, I'm trading out. Just going to see what I can get for 3, and then I'm going to try to pick Amen Thompson. I think he has a way higher upside, and I like his pairing with Sharp because they will play fast pace. They're long, they're fast. Like, it would just be a dream combo to me.
Wow. Plus, he's a little bit better defensively, right? Amen. Got that wide wingspan.
Yeah, wide wingspan.
Kind of make up for a little bit of Simon's, downfall defensively. See, that's I love these talks sometimes because I get locked into an idea and then I start to break it down with you, and it makes more sense actually. If Scoot's not there at 2, then it becomes what's the direction post-draft? And obviously, it's either get back a superstar at 3 or move back 3, 4 spots and get the guy that is more better off for the rebuild and then dust off Lillard later. So the more and more I think about that, it feels so much more natural. Then you can start to get in the conversation of getting rid of Nurkic's contract if possible. You know what I mean? And really just blowing the whole thing up, picking 2 or 3 guys to build around and go from there. That's kind of, I was locked into the Lillard getting moved in the next week or 2. It actually is next week. It's actually out of all the superstars being thrown around, I actually think it's going to be Beal that gets traded. Now, Beal could be traded to Portland. That could have been the one move that you had said. I'm not a huge fan of that. As soon as you said it, I kind of shrugged it off. I don't like guard-heavy, like 2-guard teams. Like, I think you need a big and a guard superstar to win. And, yes, Golden State's proven that they've been able to do it with 2 guards and whatever. But I think in this league, you need that balance of 6'3", 6'4", and 6'9", 6'11", like bigger guys who can stretch the floor and do a little pick and roll, pick and pop with your two best players. See, that's where and I don't want to deflect to a different team, but that's one of my faults with Boston. I just think if it was a little bit more balanced size-wise, because you can't afford two max player guards and then want to spend money at the big position. And you got to play Giannis and you got to play Jokic and Embiid and Anthony Davis and, all these bigs, Kevin Durant, 6'11". Dude, you got to have a big man. You got to spend money at both front court and back court. So let me ask you this. At 3, is there a superstar that you would target? Would you call said team and say, yo, what do you think about 3 for this guy? Who's the guy that, if you were the GM of Portland, who would you be calling and saying, I would love to pair this guy with Lillard, and I think this would be a good fit?
Yeah, my best.
I got one for you.
The guy I would trade for, because I think he's 27 now, so you would get like 8 years of his prime is Bridges.
Oh, it's not the guy I was thinking.
Because I think his offensive game is going to make a huge leap, and that's the kind of guy you want around Lillard. Like, I agree with you. If you have Beal and Lillard, they're just going to set screens until they got the favorable matchup on one of those two. So I'd much rather, pair him with a wing who can guard 1 through 4. And
I like that pick, though.
So that's my guy.
I got one for you, and I know you're going to love this. I know in the back of your brain you've thought it, but in the front of it you know this. Lauri Markkanen. I know you're big on this guy. You have even said you won't be surprised for MVP votes for this guy next year. I know you were probably talking shop, but I know deep down you feel that. You were all over this dude's improvement this season. I give you absolute credit for that. But is there a dark horse chance that Utah, they have 9, 16, and 28 in this year's draft? Do you think there's a backdoor chance Portland? I love Lillard Markkanen fit. That's tough, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
think about that.
I would prefer. I would definitely do it if I'm Portland. Would definitely, like, if I could get Markkanen and Scoot's not there, like, I'm definitely doing that. He's like Brandon Miller's kind of like what you want him to be, Lauri. Like, so I'd much rather just have the guy who's already. But I don't think the Jazz aren't gonna give him up. But I love that pairing.
He's 2 years left on his contract, Markkanen, and he's at a great price, $17 and $18 million. If you're saying no way Jazz consider it, I guess that's a scenario where, say, a guy like Scoot does fall to 3, and Portland is still dead set on we're going to build around Lillard. I mean, I'm calling Utah, because Utah they were super competitive last year, but they also traded to rebuild that team. So I don't know if Markkanen puts them in a point where they might get stuck in that 35 to 42 win range because, yeah, they're rebuilding, but they're not going to rebuild all the way. So I don't know if that's a guy that I would keep an eye on. Lauri Markkanen, because yes, Utah was going to push the reset button, and they took Sexton and Markkanen back, and then Markkanen just had this season where people were like, "Oh shit, this guy is actually really good," and has a will and an ability to get better. That's my target. If I'm Portland, I said Siakam. I thought that had some legs, and it still might because Toronto looks like they're going to blow the whole thing up. But the more and more I rehashed it, that's the dude. Like, out of anybody else, I don't know who else they could possibly get at 3. But that's my target. There's not a big man available that's better than healthy Nurk. They will never get rid of bona fide potential all-star center. No way Utah gets rid of Markkanen. And you, Kyle, you and Tony are probably right. I wouldn't trade Markkanen, but if the idea of rebuilding from the bottom up is eliminate everything, because if Utah still thinks they're 3-4 years away, Markkanen's now 30. So, like, yeah, that's not old in this league, but 30 is 30. You know, not everybody's built like LeBron James and gets better till they're 38. But that's kind of where I'm at. This was a good chat, man. Portland's a sexy team based off of they have 2 firsts. They have the unsure pick at 3. That might hold a lot of value if Scoot Henderson falls to that. And then they're sitting on, if Scoot Henderson falls to 3, do they now take all their attention and take max value for Lillard? Tony, the one spotlight guy I asked you, we're about to wrap this up, but the one piece that Portland kind of had said, we're not trading this dude, is Sharp. They're basically telling teams, depending on what we do, this is the one guy we're probably going to lock in with and keep. Tell me a little bit about his season last year and maybe a little bit about a projection of what you see from him going forward from this point on. 20 years old. So the kid's got nothing but no ceilings ahead of him. So give me a little breakdown on him.
Yeah, so he sat out a whole year in between high school and college. Just kind of worked on his, had a trainer, worked on his game. A lot of people didn't think he would even see the court in the beginning of the season. It was a struggle to start, but that was supposed to. But by the end of the season, he got way better at rebounding, passing, and scoring at a rapid rate. So he's high volume 3-point shooter. It seems like he can hit very tough shots. Like we all know, he has exceptional bounce. He's great in the open space. But in the last month, in the month of March, he averaged 13.8, 3.7 rebounds, and 2.2 assists, and 42% from 3. And then in the final four games, he averaged like 23, 6, and 5.
Yeah,
so I don't know. He sky's the limit, and now I think now he's like kind of playing in a role where they're trying to win games. There wasn't much room for error until the end of the season when they really went for the tank. So I don't know. I would try everything with this guy. I don't want to just cap him at just being a 3-point shooter. I want to see if he can get better as a playmaker, run some on-ball sets, some off-ball sets, and really try to play him 30-some minutes a game next year.
Well, to be a little bit more in depth to your stats, he started the last 10 games of the season. He was averaging 36 minutes a game. This is at 19 years old. He was averaging 23.7 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. And like you're saying, this was in an accelerated role for somebody they weren't even sure was going to be able to play significant minutes yet. You had mentioned that he sat out an entire year. Where was he ranked prior to that year? Was he a projected top 10 pick and he wanted to be higher, or was it just something he wanted to get better?
He was supposed to be top 5, and then he committed to Kentucky, and then he kind of just decided he wanted to take the route, get a trainer. And then people didn't know, was it smart? Was it? And then a lot of people were like, oh, this kid's going to suck. The reason he didn't play is because he can't play basketball. He's hiding from the scouts. He's just an athlete. And
it's very nuts, bro.
Yeah, when it's literally the kid just wanted to work on his weaknesses, and he got a lot better in that 1 year. So I think he made a good
he was in the dunk contest too, right?
He was supposed to be.
Oh, okay.
And then I don't know.
But look, I think overall, is there anything else you want to touch on Portland? I'm pretty much locked in with them. I'm curious. Obviously, the draft's 7 days away, so we're going to know a lot more in a week because free agency is the week after that. So, is there anything else you wanted to touch on prior to the draft, or you want to just kind of see how it plays out?
Yeah, from here, I'm good. I think a lot of what we're talking about is going to depend on what happens on next week in the draft. So
Thursday, next Thursday.
There'll be just everyone pay attention to Portland on the draft and free agency, because there's going to be a chance of breaking news out of that camp at any time.
Absolutely, bro. So, signing off with you. Appreciate you, Tony G, as usual. Give me a little send-off tonight. You usually leave me dead silent. Give me a little, peace out.
Yeah, let's go draft in a week, baby.
Let's go, baby.
Have a good one.
Yo, Tony G says, make sure you pay attention to Portland's Twitter feed, and any minute now, Portland fans need to pay attention to what the Hornets are doing too. That's the ultimate for them. That's the domino. Kind of isolate and find out what Charlotte's going to do, and makes it a lot easier to figure out what you're going to do. So I'm gonna log out of here. We're trying to do 30 minutes. Went a little bit over today. Once again, I want to thank Let's Talk Sports, our new YouTube partnership, Hardcore Sports Network. Make sure you like us on Facebook, Undrafted Hoops. The artist formerly known as Give and Go. If you know, you know. Twitter, @UndraftedHoops_. It's all news, opinions, our narrative of how we want to cover the NBA, not how your toxic ass wants to cover it. And check us out on YouTube. We're posting all 30 teams, off-season block party at Undrafted Hoops. Smash the subscribe button, or I'm going to smash you. I'm just kidding. Peace out. Appreciate you. Let's go Rip City, baby.